we talk about grief work, we talk about processing pain, but there's also a very negative sort of parallel version of this, which is about rumination. And, scholars have talked about how there's some kind of activities that cannot, that aren't helpful for us processing pain. There's certain kinds of thinking or remembering. And I think to the outside, it might seem quite difficult to distinguish between a kind of, remembering that's ruminative, that isn't going anywhere, versus one that's processing. And I just wonder if you have any sense of the difference between those two things.
I mean, to some extent, I think we all ruminate, because we all get obsessed with the person that's died. So I think there's a healthy part of rumination that maybe we all have to go through. I think what's distinct in rumination that really leads to complex grief and kind of stuck grief is when the rumination continues and continues. And that's a bit like a hamster on a wheel, where you over and over go over the same events and you have the same feelings and you hit a brick wall and it takes you nowhere. Whereas the process of grieving, in a way, as we've been talking about, is that you have a kind of a thought and an image and a feeling, and you kind of recognize it internally, and you may find ways of expressing it in all the different ways that you can, but it shifts something. It adjusts you. At the end of it's like crying. So when you start crying, you're like, you really don't want to cry. But by the end of crying, people tend to feel better. They tend to have released something. And I think that's the same with processing. And it doesn't always have to be with tears by any means. You can kind of go for a walk and really be thinking about something and have a narrative for yourself. But you're kind of going forward sounds too simple. Because often grief is a kind of, very up and down process, and it isn't by any means a straightforward one, but it's movement. I think the difference is movement and stuckness.
Yeah.
I could have said that much quicker.
No, that makes sense. And some of the activities they describe are more about like keeping people's, possessions in exactly the same way, or returning over and over again to the same spots. And they seem more like to block the reality of what's happening rather than somehow integrating it.
What I've understood with some people who might get stuck is that there is a dilemma in that when you hold on to an image of the person and you hold on to the pain of the person that's died, there's an internal sense that they feel closer. Mm-hmm. And that in allowing yourself to process, allowing yourself to move towards the pain, feel it, and then allow it to recede and be distracted and get on with other aspects of your life, there's a fear that you're abandoning the person that's died, and that you're leaving them, and that you need to honor them and show them that you love them. And in doing so, you kind of hold tight. And so that, that very, where I see it most commonly, and I think it can happen in any of the relationships, but is with parents with children, deaths out of time, where they feel responsible for caring for the child and parenting the child in death as well as in life. And that is an incredibly complex process. I totally get that. But the process of grieving is an ebb and flow. It isn't a staying stuck.